The following podcast may not be for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, listeners, to another journey into the unexplained realms. I'm going to unravel one of the strangest coincidences in the history of literature and the sea. This is the tale of Edgar Allan Poe's book about a doomed voyage and a name and event that echoed from fiction into chilling reality. I invite you to imagine the open sea at night. The moon is a pale coin, lost in a sky crowded with clouds. The waves stretch out forever, black and bottomless, and somewhere out there on the dark sea are men clinging to a battered makeshift raft. Who would do anything to survive? Join me as I unravel this chilling fictional tale that clawed its way out of the pages of a book and twisted fiction into a living nightmare. In 1838, Edgar Allan Poe published his only novel, titled The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. A feverish, surreal adventure that he himself called very silly. But buried within its storm-battered pages lies a scene so ghastly, so specific, that it would take on a life and death of its own. Poe's novel begins with the young Arthur Pym conspiring with his friend Augustus to stow away aboard the whaling ship Grampus. Augustus Bernard is the captain's son. Pym hides below decks, wedged in a cramped, airless hold with nothing but a few supplies, waiting for Augustus to signal that the coast is clear. When Pym is discovered, the Grampus is transformed into a floating hell, torn apart by a mutiny, a shipwreck, and eventually cannibalism. The crew is divided. Some are loyal, some are murderous, and some are simply mad. The violence is swift and merciless. A storm with no warning. Pym and Augustus ally themselves with the brutal and enigmatic Dirk Peters. Together they navigate a world gone feral, where every hour is a gamble, and every face could be a friend or an executioner. Trust is a currency in short supply. The ship limps along, battered by storms and sabotage, until at last it's destroyed by the sea. Pym, Augustus, Peters, and a handful of others find themselves adrift, clinging to the ruined carcass of the Grampus. The world has collapsed to a splintered raft and an endless horizon. There is no rescue in sight. From the very first page, Poe traps the reader in a shrinking space, then flings them into chaos. The Grampus is a coffin, a crucible, a stage for every kind of desperation. And as the days drag on, the difference between stowaway and captive, between sailor and castaway, blurs into oblivion. The only certainty is that the worst is still to come. The desperate survivors, cast adrift in the endless ocean, with hunger gnawing at them. Madness simmers. Finally driven by starvation and delirium, the men draw straws. The loser will be sacrificed to save the rest. The unlucky man's name? Richard Parker. They kill him, and then they eat him. In its bleakest chapters, Poe abandons all hope for some of his characters and drags them and us into the jaws of the sea itself. It's horror fiction, and while it terrifies you, you can close the book and put it away. But what I'm about to tell you will chill your blood. In 1884, Edgar Allan Poe's story came to life. The yacht Mignonette set sail from England to Australia, her fate already sealed by the uncaring sea. The Mignonette was a recent acquisition, a gleaming prize snatched up by Tom Want, a lawyer whose appetite for spectacle was as notorious as his taste for risk. Australia lay ahead, promising open water and stories to be told. The crew, a handful of men, with little in common but a hunger for something more. Among them was Richard Parker, a cabin boy, just 17, not yet old enough to know how cruel the world could be. Their first days were almost gentle. The air was soft, the sea compliant, the promise of adventure barely tinged with menace. But as the African coastline faded behind them and the ship pressed on past the Cape of Good Hope, the world changed. The Atlantic opened beneath them, endless and indifferent. The sky darkened, the ocean gathered itself. The storm didn't rage, it devoured. Wave after wave punished the Mignonette, splintering wood, testing resolve, until at last the vessel gave in. There was no heroism in the sinking, just the cold violence of nature. Left with nothing but a fragile dinghy and the clothes on their backs, Captain Tom Dudley, mate Edwin Stevens, seaman Ned Brooks, and the boy Richard Parker drifted into the aftermath. The sea was silent now, but survival would demand far worse than the storm. Fiction would unfold into real life. The men, desperate, drew straws, and then one chosen to die so the others might live was Richard Parker. The press seized on the bizarre connection Poe had written decades before about a shipwreck, survivors, and the cannibalism of a man named Richard Parker. Coincidence, or premonition, or something stranger? What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but for now, I'll just leave it to the unexplained realms. Some say the ocean is full of secrets, that it remembers the stories whispered to it, and sometimes it spits them back out. Others believe in fate or thin line between fiction and reality. There's a lot of skeptics out there, and they argue that the Richard Parker in the book and in real life, there was no connection. It was just simply a common name in the 19th century, and that shipwrecks and desperation made cannibalism more prevalent. But none of that explains the shudder that runs down your spine when you read Poe's book, written long before the Mignonette ever set sail. I have a special shout out to Clara in South Carolina. She crept in with an email asking, how could Poe's pen conjure such a precise prophecy? Did some dark foresight touch him? Thank you for the episode inspiration and for being a listener, Clara. Wishing you spooky season vibes all year round. What do you think? Was Poe tapping into something? Something dark beneath the surface of our world? Or was it simply a coincidence? Perhaps in the end, the real horror is how closely reality can mirror our darkest tales. Until next time, remember, sometimes the truth is more terrifying than fiction.